What is going on, Jet fans? Matt O'Leary back with another video. Happy Labor Day. Hope you are enjoying your day off. What I wanted to do today, yes, it is game week for the New York Jets. We'll get a ton more into storylines going into Jets Steelers. I wanted to take a look because we had our first weekend really of college football, and a big storyline is the quarterback class. And there's a very real possibility that the Jets will be in on a quarterback in 2026. Look, I want Justin Fields to be the long-term answer for the New York Jets. I really, really do. But you have to also do your due diligence on this quarterback class. And it's something that Jet fans are going to be keeping a closer eye on this year because of some of the big names in this class and because there's a good chance the Jets will be in on a quarterback. So I saw a ton of Jet fans talking about it. I wanted to go through and give you my takeaways from some of the big name guys in this upcoming quarterback class. We start with Arch Manning, who had a really disappointing game against Ohio State. They struggled in a 14-7 loss, 17 of 30 for 170 yards, 1 touchdown and an int. I thought his mechanics looked off, that was the most surprising thing. Look, and it's a tough test on the road against the defending champs in your first start. Like, I'm not saying throw Arch Manning to the curb. He's not going to be the guy. It's one game here in a long season. And I don't think you should overreact and say that he's not good or anything like that. But this just frankly wasn't an all that impressive debut in 2025 for Arch Manning. And look, I don't think he comes out of school anyway for the 2026 draft, but until he comes out and officially says that, I think he's going to be talked about with the rest of these guys. So we'll include him in here. But in this game against Ohio State, clearly not how he was looking to start. Again, I get it. Tough matchup. I'm not saying, Arch Manning stinks, like throw everything away on the kid. I don't think that's fair, but clearly not what he was hoping for in his week 1 game. Drew Allar is another popular quarterback that gets talked about a ton out of Penn State against Nevada. 22 of 26, 217 yards, a touchdown and an interception. Efficient. That's really how my biggest takeaway from this game. I thought he was efficient. 84.6 completion percentage. Beat up on a bad team. Penn State won 46-11. He did everything that he was supposed to do. For me, with Allar, it's really going to be how he fares against the tougher competition. And look, last year we saw some struggles against Notre Dame in the playoff. Oregon, Ohio State wasn't really two of his better performances from the year. There's, I think, a lot of things to like about Allar. He doesn't take too many chances, which could be skewed as a positive or negative. But I personally, after watching Zach Wilson and Sam Darnold as young quarterbacks, I'm okay with someone who maybe doesn't take as many chances, has the physical traits, can be a runner with the football as well. I just really need to, and we as football fans, I just think need to see it against this tougher competition for him to set himself apart from some of these other guys in the draft class. We had a head-to-head as well. Cade Klubnik of Clemson going up against Garrett Nussmeier of LSU. Two very different performances. Klubnik didn't look great. 17-10 loss to LSU, so Nussmeier and LSU win the game, but he was 19 of 38, which is a 50% completion percentage, 230 yards, no touchdowns and an interception. This is another guy, I just said it with Drew Allar, but this is another guy you kind of have to see it against a tough competition and not the greatest of starts against LSU. Last year struggled against teams like Georgia and Louisville and South Carolina. To his credit, though, he was really good in a loss against Texas, so I'll give him that one. But from what I'm watching for from him this year, again, is what can he do against some of these good programs? He's, a name that's going to get talked a ton about in this 2026 draft. And, I think there are things to like about Klubnik. I'm not saying I'm out on him. It's way too early to make any of those kind of decisions on the quarterbacks, I think. But in his first game against, again, a good LSU team, just not the start you were hoping for. As for Nussmeier, again, a solid game, 28 of 38, which was a 73.7 completion, 230 yards, a touchdown, no interceptions. Had another touchdown that was taken off the board that probably should have counted. But I feel like watching him, he doesn't really do anything crazy flashy. I just think he's solid across the board. Didn't take any bad sacks. I think he was only sacked once against a really good defensive line that Clemson has. Poised is the word that I went to. I thought it was a poised performance. I came away impressed. Now, we may very well end up in a situation where Nussmeier is the number one quarterback in this class, and the Jets, depending on how their season goes, might not end up being in range to take a guy like him. But this is not what this video is about. It's about looking at the bigger name quarterback prospects who are likely to come out in 2026 or talked about in the 2026 class, and how they looked and what I'm watching for and what you guys saw as well. The NFL season is here, which means you now have a chance to 100x your cash on daily fantasy football. Football has never been more exciting than it is now, with players like CJ Stroud, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Justin Jefferson. On and on it goes. Pick on stats for these stars like touchdowns, passing yards, receiving yards, fantasy points, and more for up to a 100x payout on Sleeper. I already put my picks in for the first game of the year, Eagles-Cowboys week 1. I have Dak more than 0.5 passing yards. That's kind of a freebie, right? Saquon more than 1.5 receptions, and Jalen Hurts more than 257.5 passing and rushing yards. $5 to win $23.50. Use promo code O'Leary and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 25 states. Check out Sleeper today. Maybe the best statistical performance of the big names was John Mateer. Balled out against Illinois State. And I get it. It's against Illinois State, right? Like, let's pump the brakes a little bit. I get it. But 30 of 37, 392 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 pick, and a rushing touchdown to go with it. Transferred from Washington State to Oklahoma. He's just fun. It's hard not to go to the Baker comparison with him at Oklahoma. You know, the headband, the eye black, slinging the ball around. Again, this is against the competition. You got to take it with a grain of salt. I get that. But it's hard not to really have fun watching him. I don't know how high up of these quarterbacks he ends up. Like, I don't know if he's going to end up QB1 in this class. But I've enjoyed watching him, and I think the transfer to Oklahoma is going to, be really interesting to see how he continues to develop in 2025 and where his draft stock ends up. You also had Fernando Mendoza, who maybe not as much of a big name as some of the other guys, but pretty much the main reason why I'm talking about him is because he had a throw go viral. He was 18 to 31, 58.1%, no touchdowns, no picks. Had a beautiful deep ball that should have been caught for a big touchdown. The wide receiver dropped it, and the play was making the rounds. And look, don't get me wrong, beautiful throw. Really, really nice ball. I need to see more from him than just obviously what we saw in this game, and I get it. It should have been 19 to 31 and had more yards on top of it, better completion percentage, and that highlight reel touchdown. But again, this is someone that I would like to see more from this year before we make any statements about him being towards one of the top names. Last one, Lenor Sellers in a 24-11 win over Virginia Tech. This was an interesting one. He started out really hot, got cold a little bit, and then towards the end, it got hot again. 12 of 19, 209 passing yards, and 1 touchdown, no interceptions, plus another 25 yards rushing on the ground and a touchdown. Watching him, he is such a crazy athlete. That is so obvious watching this man play football. And I understand the Cam Newton comps. I really do. Like, that's a name that gets tossed around a lot with Lenor Sellers, and he's a big dude, physical, not afraid to run, not afraid to put his head down. The one thing that I noticed, and this was probably the game I saw the most of from all these guys, I did go back and watch what I'm talking about like live. This was the game that I watched probably the most of. And there were a couple plays where I thought his internal clock needs to maybe speed up a little bit, get a better feel for the rush. He took a safety, trying to make a play. He was trying to tuck in and run and didn't make it through. Just throw it at the feet of, whoever's in the flat like that. That's, something that hopefully he'll learn. And he got absolutely clocked on a sack where he just had no feel for the rush. But his escapability, there were other points where maybe the offensive line play wasn't really all that great, and that could be something that he's going to have to deal with this year. But just his escapability and playmaking ability is going to get him drafted pretty high. and a really fun player to watch. And I think we saw that in week 1. There were some real standout plays from Sellers. So there you go. Those are some of my takeaways from some of the big name quarterbacks. Who stood out to you, whether it was positive or negative? Let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for tuning in. Once again, I'm Matt O'Leary, and I'll catch you next time.